Welcome to a deep dive. So surreal it might just melt your pocket watch.
Ah,
Today, we're
yeah.
unlocking the mind of Salvador Dali,
Hmm.
the maestro of melting clocks and lobster telephones.
Dali, a man who dined with tigers, designed a suit with pockets for hard-boiled eggs, and once declared, "I don't do drugs, I am drugs."
Exactly. He wasn't just an artist, he was a walking, talking work of art.
Hmm.
And we're not just going to talk about him, we're going to think like him.
Interesting.
So throughout this deep dive, we'll play a game.
Hmm.
What would Dali dream up?
Intriguing, do tell.
We take a humdrum object, say a coat hanger,
Okay.
and ask, what would Dali do with this?
Mm.
Using his techniques and symbols,
Uh-huh.
we'll melt that hanger into something extraordinary.
Okay.
And you, dear listener, are invited to play along.
Let's melt reality together.
Yes.
Starting with Dali's childhood.
Okay.
He was born in Figueres, Spain,
Mm-hmm.
a town known for its order and structure.
Yes.
A stark contrast to young Salvador, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Even as a child, he crazed grandeur. He'd dress up as a king, dreamt of being Napoleon, a classic case of go big or go home, even in playtime.
But there was another side to his childhood, Cadaqués, a wild coastal town where he spent summers.
Right.
That's where he encountered the raw beauty of nature, the ever-changing sea elements that would later become recurring motifs in his surrealist landscapes.
A bit like how the rugged coastline of Cadaqués contrasts with the neat streets of Figueres. Dali himself was a walking contradiction. Now, I know there's been debate about the details of his childhood,
Yes.
especially regarding a possible mental breakdown at age 10.
Yes, some accounts suggest a significant event, possibly a breakdown, occurred around that time.
Right.
While we can't confirm its nature, it's fascinating to consider how such an experience might have influenced his later exploration of the subconscious.
Exactly. It's like peering through a distorted lens trying to make sense of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And even his early paintings hint at this old man at twilight, for example. A seemingly simple portrait. Yet there's this distortion of perspective, a hint of the surreal.
Even as a teenager, he was experimenting with reality.
Yeah.
Like his portrayal of his nanny Lucia in Figure at a Window.
Uh-huh.
The way he captures her essence, it's almost like peering into a dream.
It was around this time that Dali encountered Impressionism, specifically through the works of Ramon Pichot.
Pichot's paintings introduced young Dali to a new way of seeing the fleeting play of light, the subjective experience of reality.
Yes.
It was a departure from the rigid academic style of the time.
So it's not just what he painted, but how he painted. It's like realizing you can bend the spoon instead of just using it to stir your tea. Then off he goes to Madrid, a young Dali at the San Fernando Academy. This hotbed of creativity.
But it wasn't just the academy. He resided at the Residencia de Estudiantes, a haven for artists and intellectuals.
Yeah.
Think Federico Garcia Lorca, the poet, Luis Buñuel, the filmmaker.
Wow.
Imagine the conversations, the clash of ideas.
Now, those are some names to conjure with. What drew Dali to these individuals? What was it about their work that resonated with him?
Lorca with his exploration of desire and tragedy. Buñuel, who delved into the unsettling depths of the human psyche.
Right.
They were kindred spirits drawn to the power of the subconscious.
And they weren't just talking about art, they were living it. Dali's relationship with Lorca, for instance, was deeply complex, fueled by artistic passion. And, well, let's just say it was a bit of a tangled web.
Indeed, Lorca's fascination with Dali was quite evident, but Dali's feelings were more ambiguous, focused on their shared artistic vision. Their connection, however, would inspire some of their most powerful works exploring themes of beauty, desire, and the subconscious.
Ah, the subconscious. A perfect segue to our first What Would Dali Dream Up challenge.
Oh,
I have an everyday object here, an egg.
okay.
Simple, right? But in Dali's hands, it becomes something else entirely.
Yes.
So, dear listener, what does a Dali-fied egg look like to you?
Does it crack open to reveal a miniature landscape? Does it sprout wings and take flight?
Interesting.
Perhaps it melts dripping down a canvas like a tear. Remember, there are no wrong answers, only surreal possibilities.
Exactly. Let your imagination run wild. Now, before we delve into the birth of surrealism and Dali's truly revolutionary period, let's talk about his artistic development in Madrid. Juan Núñez. His teacher instilled in him meticulous technique, a mastery of detail.
And here's where Dali truly shines. He absorbed various artistic styles, mastering them, yet never losing his unique voice. He was like a chameleon, blending in, yet always standing out.
He wasn't afraid to experiment to push boundaries. Which brings us to his collaboration with Buñuel on Un Chien Andalou,
Yes.
a short film so shocking, so bizarre, It became a defining moment in surrealist cinema.
The film is a visual assault, a whirlwind of disturbing imagery that cuts through the veneer of reality to expose the raw subconscious beneath. Take the infamous eyeball slicing scene.
Okay, I have to admit that one still makes me squirm, but it's brilliant in its audacity. It's like
Yes.
Dali and Buñuel were saying, wake up, look beyond the surface.
Mm.
There's a whole world of dreams and desires waiting to be explored.
Precisely. And it's this exploration, this fearless dive into the subconscious that will lead us to the heart of Dali's surrealism. But that, my friend, is a story for our next installment.
I can't wait.
Welcome back to our exploration of the delightfully irrational world of Salvador Dali. Last time we left off with Dali on the verge of a revolution.
Oh, more than a revolution. It was an explosion of the subconscious, a grand unveiling of the dreamscape. We're talking, of course, about the birth of surrealism.
Imagine a world where melting clocks drape over barren landscapes, where lobsters frolic with telephones, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary. That's the world Dali invited us to explore.
And he didn't just dip his toes into the surreal. He swan-dived in a glorious splash of eccentricity and genius. Now, I know some folks might find it all a bit shocking, bit out there, but that was the point, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The surrealists aimed to challenge conventional thinking, to shake things up, to awaken the sleeping mind. Remember André Breton's famous declaration, "Surrealism is a part of reality."
That must have been like a rallying cry for Dali. It's like giving permission to a mischievous child to play with all the toys in the shop to turn the world upside down. And we see this playful subversion in his early surrealist works.
Take Inaugural Gooseflesh, for example. What a title. It's a visual feast of abstract concepts, symbols, and distorted figures. It's not meant to be easily interpreted. It's meant to evoke a feeling, a sense of wonder, and perhaps a touch of unease.
It's like he's presenting us with a dream, but it's up to us to decipher the symbols to make sense of the nonsensical. And speaking of dreams, we can't forget Un Chien Andalou, that wild short film Dali created with Buñuel.
Ah, yes. A film that slices through the veil of reality with the precision of a razor blade, revealing the unsettling desires that lurk beneath.
I've heard people say they felt like they needed a good brain scrub after watching it. But it's a testament to Dali's audacity, his willingness to confront the dark side of the human psyche.
He wasn't afraid to explore the taboo, to push boundaries. And this fearless exploration extended to his personal life as well. This brings us to a figure who would become instrumental in Dali's life and art, Gala.
Ah, Gala. More than a muse, she was a force of nature. A savvy businesswoman, a master manipulator. She understood Dali in a way few others did.
She recognized his genius and knew how to nurture it. She pushed him to refine his technique to develop that meticulous style that became his signature. She was the one who encouraged him to experiment with resin, creating those luminous, almost otherworldly effects in his paintings.
It's fascinating how Gala managed to tame the wild beast of Dali's creativity, channeling his energy into masterpieces. And their relationship, oh my, it was a stuff of legend.
The spectrum of sex appeal is a particularly revealing work in this regard. It delves into the complexities of desire, anxieties, and taboos surrounding sex, all viewed through the prism of Dali's unique vision.
It's a reminder that behind the melting clocks and lobster telephones, there's a deeply personal, almost confessional element to Dali's art. He wasn't just playing games with our minds, he was exposing his own.
This brings us to one of his most iconic images, the persistence of memory. Tell me what comes to mind when you see those melting clocks draped over a barren landscape.
For me, it's the feeling of time slipping away, of reality becoming fluid and unstable, like a dream you can't quite grasp. But there's also a deeper layer, a sense of anxiety about the modern world, the relentless march of time in an increasingly chaotic age.
Precisely, Dali wasn't just a whimsical dreamer, he was a keen observer of his time. And this brings us to a rather controversial aspect of his life, his fascination with Hitler.
I've always found that intriguing. What was it about Hitler that captivated Dali? Was it a purely artistic fascination or something more?
Dali was drawn to the idea of paranoia as a creative tool. He saw in Hitler a figure who embodied both power and irrationality, and this led him to develop the paranoia critical method.
Okay, I have to admit that one sounds a bit intimidating. Break it down for me. What exactly is the paranoia critical method?
Think of it as a way of accessing the subconscious by deliberately inducing a state of paranoia. Dali would seek out ambiguous images, things that could be interpreted in multiple ways. It's like looking at a cloud and seeing a rabbit, then a dragon, then a face.
So he was training his mind to see beyond the obvious, to find hidden meanings in the seemingly random.
Exactly. And this method allowed him to create art that was both visually stunning and intellectually challenging. It forces the viewer to question their own perceptions, to become active participants in the creative process.
It's like he's inviting us to join him on a journey into the labyrinth of his mind. And speaking of journeys, it's time for another What Would Dali Dream Up challenge. This time we're starting with a feeling anxiety. Close your eyes and imagine how Dali would transform that feeling into a surrealist masterpiece.
Would it be a swirling vortex of colors, a melting clock dripping with fear, or perhaps a creature with 1,000 eyes staring back at you? Remember, there are no limits to the imagination. Let your anxieties guide your brushstrokes.
That's a powerful image. And it reminds us that even in the most unsettling emotions, there can be beauty, there can be art. Dali wasn't afraid to confront the darkness, to explore the shadows of the human experience. But he also understood the power of humor, of whimsy, of turning the ordinary into the extraordinary.
And it's this unique blend of the profound and the playful that we'll explore in our next segment as we delve into Dali's ventures beyond the canvas. Get ready to melt reality once again, dear listener, as we follow Dali into the realm of Hollywood pop culture and the ever-evolving world of modern art.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the mind of Salvador Dali. It's the final act of our surrealist spectacle, and as you might expect, things are about to get even weirder.
That's right. We're stepping outside the confines of the canvas now into a realm where Dali's artistic vision collides with pop culture, Hollywood, and the burgeoning world of modern art.
It's like he had this sixth sense, sensing the shift from the traditional art world of Paris to the vibrant, almost frenetic energy of New York City.
And he didn't shy away from it. He embraced it wholeheartedly. He dove headfirst into the world of Hollywood, collaborating with the Marx Brothers, even designing a dream sequence for Alfred Hitchcock's film Spellbound.
Imagine that pitch meeting. A giant pair of scissors slicing through a giant eyeball. You can almost hear the studio executives gulping.
But that was Dali. He wasn't afraid to shock, to provoke, to push the boundaries of what was considered acceptable. He was taking his surrealist vision and injecting it into the mainstream like a splash of vibrant paint on a monochrome canvas.
And he didn't stop there. He designed costumes for ballets, wrote a cookbook, even created jewelry. It's like he couldn't be contained by any one medium.
It speaks to his boundless creativity, his refusal to be confined by convention. And let's not forget his fascination with technology. He was an early adopter of photography, film, and even holography, always pushing the boundaries of what art could be.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, let's talk about his book, 50 Secrets of Magic Craftsmanship. Here's this avant-garde artist, known for his bizarre imagery and dreamlike landscapes, advocating for a return to traditional painting techniques.
It seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? But it reveals a deep respect for the craft, for the technical mastery that underpins even the most unconventional art. He wasn't just about shock value. He understood that true innovation comes from a solid foundation.
It's like learning the rules of grammar before you start writing surrealist poetry. And speaking of rules, let's revisit Dali's basket of bread for a moment. It's a seemingly simple, still life, yet there's so much more going on beneath the surface.
Exactly. Even in his most realistic works, Dali was playing with our perceptions. He used mathematical principles like the golden ratio to create compositions that were both aesthetically pleasing and subtly unsettling.
Okay, now you've piqued my curiosity. For those of us who aren't art historians, what exactly is the golden ratio and how did Dali use it?
Imagine a spiral like the shell of a nautilus, where each chamber is proportionally larger than the one before it. That's the golden ratio, a mathematical proportion found throughout nature and often used in art and architecture to create a sense of harmony and balance.
So Dali was using this ancient mathematical principle to create a sense of order within his surrealist chaos. It's like he was saying, look closer, there's method to my madness.
Precisely. He was hiding complexity within simplicity, challenging us to look deeper, to see the world with new eyes. And that's what makes his work so enduring. It's not just about the melting clocks or the lobster telephones. It's about the intellectual engagement, the invitation to join him on a journey of discovery.
It's a journey that takes us through the landscapes of his dreams, the depths of his subconscious, and even the anxieties of the modern world.
And it's a journey that continues to inspire and challenge us even today. Dali's later years were marked by both tragedy and artistic evolution. The death of Gala in 1982 had a profound impact on him. His paintings became softer, more subdued, reflecting his grief and sense of loss.
It's a reminder that even the most flamboyant personalities are still human, vulnerable to the same emotions we all experience.
But even in his grief, Dali continued to create, leaving behind a legacy as vast and complex as his own personality. And what better place to explore that legacy than the Dali Theater Museum in Figueres, Spain?
It's more than just a museum. It's a surrealist wonderland designed by Dali himself. Imagine walking through giant eggs, peering into rooms filled with optical illusions, encountering sculptures that seem to defy gravity.
The museum is a testament to Dali's belief that art should be immersive, that it should engage all of our senses. It's a place where the lines between dreams and waking life blur, where the ordinary is transformed into the extraordinary.
So as we conclude our deep dive into the mind of Salvador Dali, I have to ask, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
For me, it's the power of embracing the irrational. Dali showed us that creativity thrives when we let go of our preconceived notions, when we allow ourselves to see the world with childlike wonder and a healthy dose of paranoia.
It's about questioning everything, challenging our assumptions, and finding beauty in the unexpected. So here's your surrealist vision challenge for everyday life. Look around you right now. What ordinary object can you transform? What seemingly mundane experience can you imbue with a touch of Dali-esque weirdness?
Remember, there are no limits to the imagination. And who knows, maybe your melted reality will inspire a masterpiece.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. But the journey doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep melting reality. You never know what surrealist wonders you might discover of